know we're recording this today so we can share it out with those who can't come. And also we had requests yesterday that people listen and be able to watch it again. So we'll share it out with all of you.
Thanks, Sarah. So my little story there is really designed to set the stage for all of this, and why Innovia Foundation has pulled together partners, nonprofits, community leaders across the 20-county region that we serve to ignite generosity and to inspire people to plan now to give 5% to benefit local nonprofits and community endowments. For those of you that may be less familiar with Innovia, we are a community foundation, and our mission is to ignite generosity that transforms lives and communities. That's really why we exist, is to help people across the 20 counties that Innovia Foundation serves, and you can see those counties there, to live into this idea of community giving to community. And our vision and aspiration for the region that we serve is vibrant and sustainable communities where every person has the opportunity to thrive. And we truly believe that generosity is directly tied to communities and nonprofits that flourish, not just now, but for the long term. And so those two terms in our vision statement, they're both vibrant today, but a vibrancy that has resiliency and sustainability. And some of that, as we go through this conversation, you'll hear a lot of mention today about the idea of endowments, the power of charitable endowments that create an ongoing source of funding either for your nonprofit or for the local communities that your nonprofit serves. So this is a bit of the background of who we are. And as Innovia sought to live into that mission and vision, we began to become really interested in the data that we were hearing about the amount of wealth that is estimated to transfer both in the United States, but more importantly in our region. And PJ's on the call, and I'm going to turn this over to PJ very soon. PJ and I went to a conference about 3 years ago and heard a speaker talk about the transfer of wealth that's coming in the United States in the next 10, 20, and 30 years. And the numbers were so staggering, they were almost unbelievable. In one estimate, something in the range of $12.1 trillion estimated to transfer from one generation to the next across the United States. We also learned that the vast majority of that wealth that will transfer is not held in cash. It's held in what we would call appreciated assets or complex assets, things like real estate, life insurance policies, stocks and securities, retirement accounts, those kinds of ways that people hold wealth that require more thoughtfulness and planning in order for that wealth to become a charitable asset to benefit their favorite nonprofit. Actually, the speaker at this conference said that more than 95% of American wealth is held in complex or highly appreciated assets. So PJ and I got back and we started asking the question, what about in our region? What does this look like in Eastern Washington and North Idaho? To make a very long story very short, we commissioned a transfer of wealth study for Eastern Washington and North Idaho. I'm nerding out right now because you can see the key data points on that study behind me on the posters on the wall, and I'm actually going to share them for you right now. But what we were really interested in with this study was not what do the numbers tell us about just this, how much wealth is going to transfer in our region in the next 10 years, which does happen to be a really staggering amount of money, $42 billion. But more importantly, how is that wealth held in our region? Are there similar trends in terms of the percentage that are held in highly appreciated assets? The answer was yes. In our region, again, 95% of that wealth is held, and this will surprise no one on this call, in things like farmland, timberland, real estate, stocks and securities, even small businesses that could be turned into charitable assets. And so we began to really ask the question, how do we make this tangible and meaningful and create a call to action that would inspire people across our region to benefit their local community or their favorite nonprofit by planning now, so that some of that wealth, as it transfers generationally, will stay local in the community? What if just 5% of that wealth were designated for local communities or nonprofits? The impact would be incredible. Over $2 billion in the next 10 years that could come into local nonprofits or community endowments that would create an amazing long-term impact for our region. Again, those numbers are big, 42 billion and 2 billion. And so what we decided to do is to pull together a group of local experts that really understand what motivates people to be generous. We convened a 5% steering committee made up of nonprofit leaders, planned giving professionals, estate planning attorneys, and other folks who care deeply about our region. This group met for about 6 months and helped to develop the talking points and collateral to launch a campaign that would inspire people to be generous. And before we launch into the details of that campaign, I do now want to turn it over to PJ. And PJ is going to basically give you a couple of stories of why this matters for local nonprofits, because we recognize that as nonprofit leaders, you all are busy. You're juggling so many things. We want to help you understand that those numbers that we shared could have a meaningful impact for every nonprofit in our region. And so with that, PJ, I'll turn it over to you to share just a couple of great local stories that Innovia's had a front row seat to watch in local nonprofits in our region.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. Appreciate you putting up my slides, because even though we're just now launching this 5% campaign, these gifts have been coming in and going on for some time. So it wasn't too long ago that Spokane Public Radio, which has an endowment with us, decided that they wanted to put it out there that they're accepting unusual asset gifts. So being a radio station, they had an opportunity to talk to their audience, and I see that KSPS is on here. And so it's like, you know, what a great opportunity if you've got your own radio station or your television station to put it out there that will accept gifts of real estate, for example. Great PSAs going. And lo and behold, someone picked up the phone and said, I'd like to give you some real estate. Well, usually when you get those calls, you jump up and down with excitement, and then you ask, you know, well, did it used to have a dry cleaner or a gas station on it? Is it contaminated property? But you got to get down to looking at what the gift is. And they often are gifts that the donor wants to get rid of because they are a tax burden or they're unbuildable. This was undeveloped property. It was having trouble passing a perk test, which basically meant nobody could build on it. So we went through our due diligence and we took a chance and accepted this gift. And then it was on us to sell it. And we did end up, long story short, selling it for $62,000. That was the appraised value. After a deal fell through, we got another offer that actually went through, and happened to manage the expenses that we had to do to hold it. And so their endowment for Spokane Public Radio Fund for the Future got a big boost. It's now over $100,000. They started it out with some seed money, and within a couple years, they got this real estate gift. And we've seen endowments that nonprofits have grow to be in excess of $1 million, which is a really nice revenue stream for the organization. But this is how it happens. So that one story. The next one is another way that many people have their wealth. It's either in real estate or a lot of it is in retirement funds. We hope we live long enough to spend out our retirement funds. But if we don't, it's really wonderful if someone has an attorney that's helping them with some estate planning, as Sharon Lehrer did. And Sharon named her retirement fund to go to the Community Foundation, to Innovia, to start a new endowment for Kootenai Humane Society. And she named the fund after her cat, Rosie. So the fund is Rosie Lehrer Fund for Kootenai Humane Society. Unfortunately, she didn't live long enough to spend out her retirement, so the gift was for $246,000. I mean, it is today, but it started with just a couple $100,000 from her retirement fund. And while the principal is growing, it has already distributed over $33,000 to the Kootenai Humane Society, which previously did not have an endowment. So that's just since 2014. One third quick story is a wonderful, thoughtful donor, Howard Wilden III, who decided to leave $200,000 to his Rotary Club up in Newport and Priest River area because they did such good work in the community. Unfortunately, whoever was helping Howard with the initial planning failed to see that that group is not a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c4, a membership organization. So they were hit with a $30,000 tax bill if they were to accept that gift. It was a simple bequest. That's the easiest way for people to make a planned gift to an organization, is just leave a dollar amount or leave the rest of their estate or some percentage of their estate. So he had the right thought. And fortunately, working with a good attorney, Denise Stewart, we were able to do a TEDRA, Trust Estate Dispute Resolution Act, allowed us to make a few modifications so that they didn't have to pay those $30,000 in taxes. They transferred those dollars over into 2 separate funds at the Community Foundation that we structured, and they're supporting education, which was the donor's intent, and the Rotary Club gets to decide where the scholarships go, and they get to use some of the funds in a discretionary way to support apprenticeships and other things in the community. So that was a great outcome, good intent, just a few technical details that had to be straightened out. But that's what we're here for, and we're happy to help organizations or individual clients with those complex asset gifts. Those are my stories, Aaron. Back to you.
Thanks, PJ. And I love those stories because and the last one I love in particular because the Rotary Club is using that thoughtful planning to make now just this incredible ongoing difference in the local community. Think about the impact of that, of a gift like that is invested and lives on and allows a great local organization to address needs that enrich a community. Pretty cool. And one of the reasons that we wanted to share a few of those stories is to remind everyone that the motivation of a campaign like this is not for all of us to compete for gifts of cash. We are not here today to talk about our banquets, our auctions, our paddle raises, your monthly donors. We are talking about the ways that people plan now to make a transformational impact through thoughtful charitable gift planning, estate planning, or even a plan now for a gift that's complex. And to PJ's point with that real estate story, that was a living donor who had a piece of real estate that they no longer needed, and they wanted to make a difference with it. And we were able to help take that and turn it into an endowment gift for Spokane Public Radio. So just a few examples there. So what did
Aaron,
we do?
I would love to
Yeah,
hear what people, if people have received really unusual real estate or unusual asset gifts, I would love it if they would just throw those in the chat box while you're continuing on so I can peruse them and see what you're dealing with.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, PJ. Yeah, I'll put that question in as a reminder. That way folks can let us know what are some unusual or exciting non-cash gifts that you've seen in your organization as a reminder for everyone on the call what we're talking about today. Thank you.
And
PJ.
Aaron?
Yeah, Sarah?
While that's going on in the chat, can I share a slide that we didn't share yesterday, but came up in conversation that I'd love for you or PJ to talk about, which is sort of that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. This is great because this will pivot right to kind of what motivated us to launch this campaign. So this is a really critical piece of data that came from a study that was completed a few years ago where a research group from Texas Tech University got their hands on 1 million nonprofit 990s and began to test data about the effectiveness for nonprofits in their fundraising between 2 broad groups of nonprofits. On the left, nonprofits that focus only their fundraising efforts on gifts of cash. And you can see that over a 5-year period from 2010 to 2015, nonprofits in that category saw an 11% growth rate in their fundraising. Meanwhile, nonprofits that focused on gifts of securities or non-cash gifts or complex assets saw a 66% growth rate over the exact same time period. This is the potential impact of simply emphasizing this kind of 5% or complex gift as a part of your fundraising strategy. So thanks, Sarah, for sharing that. And we can share that data out with folks if that would be helpful to you as you make a case with your board for participating and joining. So the 5% campaign was motivated by all of this. And we pulled together that group of folks that I mentioned, the 5% steering committee. Innovia also mobilized our board and over 120 volunteers from around the region to shape and speak into the messaging and the collateral and really the strategy of this campaign. And what I'd love to do now is talk about what that looks like and where the campaign is going, and then how nonprofits can join us in participating. The first thing is about messaging. How do you take something like $42 billion that's set to transfer in a region, or 5% of that, and turn it into messaging that people can understand, that can inspire them? And we knew in working with all of our partners that we needed to focus on feeling and emotion, the sense that people who live in Eastern Washington and North Idaho, they love this place. They have a deep sense of loyalty and passion. And we wanted to tap into that because that's a motivator for why people would give. We wanted everyone to feel inspired and included. We didn't want this to be messaging where people would hear numbers like 42 billion and then automatically sideline themselves and say, well, I'm not a wealthy philanthropist. I'm just a retired teacher or a small business owner in St. Mary's, or fill in the gap. We wanted everyone to feel like they could contribute and make a difference. We knew that storytelling and focusing on real people who have left 5% would really help people to see themselves in the campaign. This next one's kind of a big, hairy, audacious goal. We actually aspire to create a norm in our region that everyone does this, that if you live in Eastern Washington and North Idaho, planning now to give 5% to your favorite nonprofit or a local endowment is just part of what you do if you live here, because you love this place and you want to create a legacy for your community. So we're hoping to change the culture of philanthropy in our region. And finally, we wanted this to be clear, compelling, and have an urgency to it. We don't want people to say, well, that's all great, I'll wait until I'm 65 and then I'll dust off my estate plan. The goal here is to move people to act now. If I could summarize the entire thing in one simple sentence, it would be this: we want to inspire everyone in our region to plan now to give 5% in their estate plan to a nonprofit or a community endowment that they are passionate about. You can't sit back. The time is now to act. So that's some of the messaging behind the campaign. We wanted a visual mark that captured this. And so you'll see a lot of intentionality in the campaign visuals. That 5% is a suggested amount that many people are investing in our region or in their local community or a favorite nonprofit, but they're doing that because they're fully committed, because they love this place, and because they're all in for our region or their community. People are planning now to invest 5%. So the visual mark captures that, and all of this will be made available to you. And then we wanted different kinds of messaging that flesh that out and make it come alive. So I won't read this, but I'll just give you a chance to absorb that this is about people in our region committing to make a difference through their planned giving in a way that reflects their passions and in a way that ensures that the wealth that they've created in their lifetime goes on after them and creates a long-lasting legacy and impact. With that, Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you. And what we want to do now is let all of you know what the partner toolkit looks like. If a nonprofit wanted to join us in sharing this out with your friends, community members, board members, and donors, what would that look like? And what resources will be made available to you to participate? So Sarah, take it away.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Bain, Marketing and Communications at Innovia Foundation. Thrilled to be here, and just want to tell you, I too have been a director of a nonprofit. I have worked with nonprofits, and I have experience in knowing what it's like to be understaffed and overworked with too much to do. So I appreciate you all taking time to be here today, and love that we're able to do this with you. One thing I will mention as I talk about this is that we will be walking with you along this whole journey. The idea is April 14th, we will be launching a social media campaign that we will share out with you April through June. And then again, looking at October, November, December, when we know your donors are doing most of their giving. So I'll put my email address and name in the chat box in a little while, and anything we can do to help support you, we are happy to. So I'm going to share my screen, and similar to what Aaron said, I just want to go over quickly, and just so you know, all of these tools will be available to you, and I'll show you where that's going to be. This is our partner toolkit that we'll share out, and you'll have the ability to make this your own, put your own logos on it, add your colors how you want. But this is the main piece of that campaign is 5% invested, fully committed. This is showing you the areas that we serve. Aaron already talked about a lot of this. Oh, Aaron, this is yours.
Yeah, if you just go forward a few more slides, Sarah, you'll get to the toolkit.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that all. So these are the visual marks. You will have the access to these as pictures so that you can use them in social media. And then this is a brochure that we are happy to share out with you. You can put your own label on it with your own information. Yep. And then these are examples of social media posts that we will be pushing out and encourage you to push out as well, making them specific to your own nonprofits. So I'm not going to go into detail because you'll have access to seeing these. This is an e-news piece, sending it out in a MailChimp letter, pushing out any news about how you're going to use the 5% campaign, and going from there. This is our website, which again, and Mila, maybe you could put a link in the box to that 5% page, which reminds me, I want to introduce Mila Yak, who is our fellow this year and has really helped to guide us on creating and working on this toolkit along with our partners and working to help you guys personalize it. So these are our key dates. Again, we have these campaign launches that are going to start on April 14th through June 30th, and again, October 15th through December 31st. What I want to show you really quick is this campaign will be up for you on a Google Docs site, which we will share with you. Again, Mila has done a great job of putting everything in this, along with the toolkit I showed you. There will be logos, social media working files, brand guidelines, brochure, animated socials, and then at the bottom we have a step-by-step guide walking you through the campaign. So I think, think about too, and I always tell this to nonprofits, it's baby steps, right? So think about your capacity, what we can most help you do. If it's simply pushing this out in newsletters to your donors, your board of directors, and doing a small social media campaign, and that is good enough, that is fantastic. If it is sharing it out in a different way, we'd love your input. Someone asked us yesterday, looking at Aaron and his background, could we provide those posters behind him for you? Absolutely. We're here to help. We're also building this campaign as it's going along. So we're interested in your creative ideas to get the word out. So please feel free to share any ideas and reach out to me if you have any questions or need support.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. All right, everyone, we've just got a few more things to share, and then we're going to open it up for the rest of our time for dialogue and questions. Of course, a common question that folks have is, how can I be involved? And what are the things that will be provided to support this work, to support nonprofits and others who want to participate? So Sarah touched on this. Let me just review the dates. We plan to launch a first wave of the 5% region-wide campaign starting on April the 14th and running through June the 30th. This is the opportunity for local nonprofits to participate and join us in that. You'll see the two dates there that we've just completed these two workshops, making those available for nonprofits. And then the first campaign wave will start on April 14th. That may seem like a random date. I'll tell you why that date matters on the in just a moment. We also know that a campaign like this is most effective when it runs in waves. Waves allow people to feel like they've never stopped hearing about the campaign, but it will give us the opportunity to learn along the way as we do this. We recognize this is going to be an iterative process. And as we all work together, one of our hopes is that we'll get feedback from all of you. What's working? What could be more effective? How can we support you? What are the messaging points that are really sticking and compelling to people that you're hearing from? And how can we tweak the campaign to be more effective? So we'll do that after wave 1. And then as we plan for a second wave in the fall from October 15th through December the 31st, we know that that's a time of year that many people are thinking about generosity. They're thinking about year-end giving. It's also a time when many people are thinking about those more complex assets or dusting off their estate plan. So we'll do a second wave and again, provide you with lots of resources and support to participate with us. And then from that point on, we'll see where this goes and what waves 3 and beyond look like. We also know that professional advisors are a crucial part of a campaign like this. And Innovia has worked really hard over the last many years to develop a network of relationships with professional advisors around our region. Over 800 estate planning attorneys, CPAs and tax advisors, investment and wealth advisors, and trust officers. These are people who have developed trusted relationships with their clients and are able to then guide their clients in decisions about their charitable giving. So we know that educating professional advisors about a campaign like this is absolutely critical. We're doing that in 2 ways. We're offering this series of workshops, and I won't go into the details. You can see those. We'll share these out in the slides so that if you have a professional advisor that you think would like to learn more, they can join one of these 2 upcoming events. The first one already took place back on February the 23rd. We're offering them all as Zoom events, and we're involving local advisors that are experts and respected in their individual trades to help be the carriers of this message about why the 5% campaign matters and how supporting nonprofits through really thoughtful planning can make a transformational impact. We're also going to be sending to all 800 of those advisors a copy of the campaign collateral and that brochure, and letting them know the ways that they can help their clients plan now to give 5% to their favorite nonprofit or to a local community endowment. And that will be the real call to action for professional advisors, is to support that charitable interest of their clients to benefit all of you and our local communities. We also know that it's really important for nonprofits to feel supported and trained in all of the different ways that they can participate. So in addition to this workshop today, we're offering 3 more, and you are all invited to every one of these. There's the April 14, a really crucial date. We're excited about this one. The title of the first endowment building workshop will be 5% for what? Tangible strategies to maximize the 5% transfer of wealth opportunity for your nonprofit or your community. And our guest speakers will be Deborah Markley. Deborah is one of the founders of the organization that did our transfer of wealth study. And then she'll be joined by Jeff Yost, who's the CEO of the Nebraska Community Foundation. And Jeff and his colleagues launched a 5% transfer of wealth study in Nebraska 15 years ago. And the stories are unbelievable about what they were able to do for nonprofits and rural communities across the state of Nebraska. So we really encourage you to join for that workshop. Then we'll do a series specifically about growing your nonprofit endowment, whether you have one already or don't. We'll be joined by 2 professionals that have a lot of creative ideas and over 30 years of experience between them in building nonprofit endowments. That's on May 5th. And then on June the 2nd, we'll round out our series with Judy Smith, and she's going to focus specifically on how can small nonprofits that don't have a planned giving team enact some really strategic and effective planned giving strategies to increase the effectiveness of your fundraising to develop this for your nonprofit. So we encourage you to join all of those. I'll put the links to register in the chat box as we keep going. Last slide, and then we're going to open this up and get some dialogue going. How can I participate? What are the ways that if I'm on this call and I represent a nonprofit or I'm a community leader that I can participate? And these are the ways. Please join us in using the Partner Toolkit. Promote this in your organization with your board members, your volunteers, your donors. We encourage anyone in your organization to use their own individual social media to educate their friends. We know that that peer-to-peer is the way that campaigns like this go viral. When people hear something from someone that they respect and trust, they're more likely to respond. So it shouldn't just be organizationally. Our hope is that individuals will be talking about this and challenging their friends and neighbors to plan now to commit 5% to their favorite nonprofit. Share the collateral, any of these resources about the workshops or the information with your board members. I already saw a question in the chat. We would be so glad to present to your board if this information would be helpful for any of your boards, and PJ or myself or any of our colleagues would be glad to do that. And finally, if you've got a professional advisor that you work with or that advises your nonprofit and you think they would benefit from knowing about this, please share the information with them or let me know and we can reach out to them. And then we really welcome your feedback. As I mentioned before, we know this is going to be an iterative process and we're going to learn a lot along the way. So let us know, how's the collateral working? Is it being well received? What could be tweaked? And what adjustments should we make in particular as we plan for that second wave? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And PJ and Sarah and Molly, have you seen some questions in the chat box that we should jump in and answer? We'd also encourage all of you, just unmute or raise your hand. What questions do you have? And how can we support you in joining us in the campaign?
I just saw a great comment about somebody getting a gift of a piece of art and wanting to know how to liquidate it. Aaron, I told him you're the point person because of your experience with the art collection.
Yeah. Thanks, Charlie. Great question. I'd love to talk more about it. Innovia Foundation helped a donor in our region with a art collection that he values at about $50 million and found a way to accept that into a component fund that will make that art available to our community long after he has passed away. And so, Charlie, I'd love to talk with you more either offline or answer any questions now. Art is a unique gift for sure. Sometimes art is restricted to be held and used by the organization, either put on display. But if you can liquidate the art, it can also become a way to build your endowment or fund other aspects of your nonprofit. Really depends on the donor's intent. And I'd be glad to help offer any of the things I've learned about. I know so much now about accepting gifts of art that I never thought I would ever learn. So yeah, those are really unique gifts for sure.
And we do know that we will need to be liquidating some portion of that endowment to support the sustainability of the rest of it. So.
And Aaron, I'm going to once again share my screen quickly. I just want to, this is our homepage, innovia.org. A couple people had asked me about events for the professional advisors. If you go over to the right and click on events, registration for events, you'll see all of our current workshops and they are being updated. It feels like daily, but weekly. And we do have 2 specific events coming up that are specific to professional advisors. And if you do have professional advisors, feel free to, send them to us, point out this page, because we really do go into depth with them about ways we can continue to help and support you. And Aaron, I don't know, or PJ, if you want to say more about that.
No, but I want to answer Katie Jessup's question, if I can jump into that. So Katie said, if you haven't read it, that as part of a board of directors of a nonprofit, she was thinking that someone needed to have certain financial qualifications to be able to receive stocks or bonds as a donation. And you do not, as a nonprofit, a 501c3, you can receive them. You do need to have information about how to accept those gifts because they are in-kind gifts of securities, and you need to have a policy in place to value them. At Innovia, we look at the day that security hits our account and looks at the average of the high and low value on that day, and that is the gift value. And we do share that information, but for legal acknowledgement, all you have to do is describe the actual securities that were given, the number and the ticker symbol, if you will. We then have a policy that liquidates them right away, and it usually takes about 5 days to settle, and the amount that ends after any minor fees that the broker takes is the amount that ends up in one of the charitable component funds that we manage. We have a lot of nonprofits that have funds with us, and whenever they get a securities gift, they just ask them to be directed to the fund because there is a little bit of complexity. But once you've been through it, it's not difficult, and you don't need special certifications or qualifications. You do need a brokerage account and a broker that will work with you to do that. And I'm happy to talk to you more about that if you have other questions.
Thanks, PJ. Kevin Benson, thanks for raising your hand with World Relief.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop, oh, sorry, there's some music practicing happening in the background right now. So if you're getting someone singing mezzo soprano, that's my wife. I wanted to just pop on and say one question that actually Aaron and you and I had talked about before was, as a small nonprofit, is this the kind of campaign that we want to jump into? And something that was really helpful for me that I think would be helpful for others is to know that actually, yes, this is the perfect kind of planned giving campaign for a small nonprofit to jump into because of the support that Innovia puts behind you. There's so many questions that, and like all of you, I'm a nonprofit guy and have been for a long time. And, you know, there's so many things we think about, and just in addition to just raising money for our operations, how do we do things like bequests and estate gifts and highly appreciated assets? Innovia is kind of the infrastructure to help us do that. And the 5% campaign is a great jumping off point to get in front of our donors and to get in front of our supporters and say, hey, here's an opportunity. If you've never done planned giving or estate gifts before, this is an opportunity for us to do that. So at World Relief Spokane, this is going to be one of our first ever campaigns for planned giving. We're going to be taking part in this next year about, you know, putting in front of our donors to build our planned giving assets for the future. And the reasons why we like it is because it's local and it can make a massive difference for our work in the future. I'm going to mute myself now and let my wife continue to sing in the background.
Kevin, I just have to jump in here and say congratulations to you, because Kevin, his organization's work so inspired a donor that she came to us, and she has just recently set up a significant fund for the purpose of supporting World Relief. She loves that mission, but she had appreciated assets. She's going to be making deposits over time, and we found the right vehicle for her to do that. And she's really on fire. So keep up the good work. We're happy to partner with you in that.
Thanks, Kevin. We've got a question there. I don't know. I apologize. I don't know. I can't tell by the initials what your first name is, Kay Pryor, but it's a great question about the minimum to set up a fund. So the kind of fund that that you're probably speaking of would be to have your own endowment as a nonprofit. And Innovia does partner with nonprofits to help establish and then manage an endowment on your behalf. The minimum to set up an endowed fund is $10,000. However, you can seed that endowment over a period of years. And that workshop that I mentioned earlier will actually focus on some tangible strategies for how you could seed that endowment, maybe involve your board or supporters in a campaign strategy of some kind to start your own nonprofit endowment. It can be a really effective strategy to create that longer term sustainability for your organization. And Kevin, I appreciated the point that you made. One of the benefits for nonprofits of having an endowment with Innovia Foundation is that then we actually do become your back office planned giving team. And if you ever have a donor who comes to you and wants to talk about a unique asset and you don't know what to do next with that conversation, myself or PJ or one of our colleagues then can become your complimentary planned giving staff to help you work with that donor and turn that into a gift to grow your endowment and benefit your organization. So thanks for that great question.
So Erin, I want to mention that's Kristen Pryor from Circles of Caring Adult Day Health. She's a treasurer, and that's down in Pullman. So if you want more specifics, Kristen, about how that works to set that up, give either Erin or I a shout out and we'll help you.
What other questions do folks have? Please feel free to unmute and just jump in or put something in the chat box, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I don't know, is anyone else downtown? The sirens are going crazy here. I don't know what it is.
Angela's raised your hand. Angela, do you have a question?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's totally appropriate because I feel like I'm just wrapping my head around this. But you had mentioned the year-end appeal that we often do as an organization. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, how does one integrate this so that it doesn't inundate and it complements and has really clear messaging? And you know, a lot of people here know what a one-person operation looks like. And so, you know, I want to do that well. I don't want to fatigue donors or mix the messaging and get in over my head. So any words on
Angela,
that?
I want to jump on that because
Yeah.
anytime we're talking to people about annual gifts, we need those gifts, and we need those gifts annually, and we need them in cash because we need to spend them out within the next year. At the same time that we're doing that, we should always be planting the seed about future gifts and unique assets, because a lot of people don't have as much cash as they'd actually like to give us to support us. And if we just plant the seed, there are a lot of people that are of a certain age, 72, where they have a required minimum distribution from retirement funds, and they don't really need that cash. And they don't really want to take that withdrawal because it counts as income. It raises their income bracket. They have to pay more for their Medicare supplements. And so if they can use those assets to roll them over into your organization or into a fund that supports your organization, they get a lot of tax benefits. But all you have to do as a nonprofit is just know if they seem to be of that age group or approaching that age group. Ask the question, do you have a retirement fund that you have to take a distribution? Is that something you'd like to consider giving to support us? They can make a much larger gift. We can help you with the details of that. Not everybody's going to have an extra piece of real estate to give you, but most people have a retirement fund. And when they get to a certain age, many people don't actually need or want that income. Because if they have a good sized retirement fund, they've probably done well in other ways financially too.
Great, thanks.
I want to jump in really quick, Angela, because I heard your question too as a communication one, just in pushing out the messaging. And I think at the most basic level, you know, through social media, through talking to people, what we like to say here is, you know, we want all, and I don't even like the term transfer of wealth. And we talk about that all the time because it's not just wealthy people, it's any of us who have any assets, houses, et cetera. But at the most basic level, I think it's really saying to all of our donors, take care of your kids and families, take care of your places of worship, your favorite universities, but think about what it would mean to leave 5% to your community that you love, that you live in, even if your kids have moved away, even if they've gone to bigger cities or moved out of the rural areas where you've raised your kids. What would it mean if everyone in our community thought about 5% back to the community? And, as a nonprofit and a smaller one too, when I worked for one, I would say, if I don't work for an animal shelter, but if your love is puppies and cats, go visit your favorite nonprofit there. But if your love is, XYZ, whatever is your nonprofit, let's have a conversation about your gift today and in the future, because as we know, being able to have a portfolio of dollars is great. And then really quickly, Sandra, I see your question. Absolutely not. No, you do not have to have an account with Innovia to participate. Our feeling is whatever we can do to help the nonprofits succeed in the region is a win for the entire region.
Yeah, Saren, let me
so
jump
this-
on that as well and just
Yeah,
say in the messaging, whether it's in the brochure, the social media, the email, text, it's all customizable. We're encouraging nonprofits to use it in the way that is most beneficial to you. So the call to action may be reach out to and then fill in your contact information if you'd like more, or contact your professional advisor. Or if you are not staffed as a nonprofit, you can point your donors to contact one of us at Innovia. We'd be glad to help them on your behalf. But we know that many nonprofits want to participate in this by pushing the collateral out and saying, if if you'd like more information, call us. By us, I mean you or your development team or someone on your staff to be that first point of contact with your donors about how they can participate. Great question. Angela, one more thing on your great question. Mila, that Sarah introduced, is going to be developing a timeline for the toolkit with some suggested ways that nonprofits, and especially nonprofits that are understaffed or you're a one-person shop, how can you make this a 30 minutes a week way that you can participate and kind of just in a simple way push out some of the campaign collateral as a part of the rest of your ongoing marketing strategy. So we don't want this to be burdensome. We just recognize that if everyone's involved, consistently pushing it out, it'll have a pretty powerful impact across the region. And if you want more tips or pointers about that, we'd be glad to have a further conversation. Great.
Karen, do you want to say a little more your question? How do we get known as an option to give to with Innovia?
Yes, we're just a pretty new nonprofit, and I know sometimes people can look like at Innovia and see all the nonprofits you guys support, or at least get in contact. Our biggest issue is how do we get our name out there? And usually somebody goes to one place where there's a bunch of nonprofits, and that's what my question is. How do I get on those lists? And not just with you guys, but with some other places. Like I know the TV stations say they have a list, but they just give you the list, and I'm trying to figure out how do I get on the list so people can see us and learn about us.
So I can jump in and just say that lists are highly overrated.
Okay.
This is such a personal business. You go, you hold hands, you rub shoulders, you wear your mask, you do whatever you need to do, but you build relationships with people just the same way in the nonprofit world as you do in life with friends. We do not have donors that come to us and say, I don't know where to give me a list or give me suggestions. It would be wonderful if they did. And if sometimes they say, I know I want to give to this basic type of charity, we can share with them that information. You don't have to be on a list, because if a donor asks us for that assistance, we're going to research it and we're going to look who in our region is doing this. One of the first places we'll look, though, is who have we given grants to? So if you've never applied to Innovia for a grant, even if you don't get the grant, you're going to become known to us, and we'll get more familiar with your mission, and we'll reach out to you. Sometimes we will even reach out to nonprofits and say, no, Molly's going to just roll her eyes at this, but here's some money, go take care of this need. And they will do that because we know them and we know that they're the best organization positionally to do that. So, right, Molly, is that how that works?
Yep. Yeah, I'm just gonna jump on that as well. Yeah, the more we know, the more we can share out when donors ask us about particular projects. We also are working on finding different opportunities to share out more formally, opportunities with our donors. We have a new database that we're kind of phasing in, and there's some different options with that for us to share out, like unfunded grant opportunities. So if an organization applies for a grant, our sources, as you all know, just like yours, are very limited. We can't fund everything, but if we can share some of those opportunities out via our donor database in front of donor advisors, they can kind of like scroll through and see what's of interest to them. So kind of as PJ said, apply to the programs, or just call me directly, or anyone on our grant staff can kind of talk through some different options. And yeah, and we never know when a donor is going to come through the door and have an interest area that we can say, oh yeah, I know about this project going on.
Okay.
We have one basic phone number. So if you don't even know who to ask for, just call the 509-624-2606. We'll answer the phone most likely, and just tell her what you want and she'll get you to the right person. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. Great. Other questions, any that we can answer? We're getting close to the top of the hour. We want to make sure we answer all of your questions. And then Sarah, as we wrap up, maybe you can just give kind of the final takeaways and what we'll be sending out to folks after the call.
Yes, thank you, Erin. We will be sending you the link to that Google Docs and also some pieces of the campaign. And now that you've been on this call, I'll be reaching out over the next couple weeks with suggested ideas and things we'll be doing to help you. And if you, again, along the way have any questions whatsoever or ideas, we love ideas. We're, like I said, building this as we go with you and for you. So we are open to anything. Yeah, 5% in the time of COVID. And we can't wait to do these with you in person in the future. I will say that as well.
Great. Other questions?
I can just hear all the wheels turning in people's heads, all the ideas. If you don't want to share your question now, we put some of our contact information in the chat box, and you can also go to the website
Yeah.
just that way. So we look forward to hearing from you. And
we actually have a couple of hands raised. Sorry, one is a phone number, 509-383. Yeah, go ahead. You may have to unmute.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hey, this is Johnny Edmondson with Shadle Park Presbyterian Church. How you doing, Aaron?
Hi, Johnny.
Hey, so I'm just wondering, so I'm leading this Growing Neighbors initiative, right, which we've talked about, which technically is still part of our church. I don't know, do you think that this campaign would work for us, like to run it as a church, and or if the church was our nonprofit, but it was specifically for this program of the church?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Johnny. Thank you. Churches are qualified charitable organizations. And so you can absolutely run it either as a nonprofit with, those contributions or planned gifts going through the church, or we can work with you on whether there's a fund type that might be able to be created that would help support the new nonprofit that you're looking to start. So I think there's a lot of options there. Great question.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And then Angela, did you have your hand raised as well?
I did, but we're out of time and I'm totally fine with just giving a call.
No, and you're fine. What we're going to do is let people know you can stay on. The Innovia team is going to stay on to answer further questions. But yeah, as we're here at the top of the hour, thanks to all of you for joining us. Watch your inboxes for more information. And we will be sending out timeline, copies of the partner toolkit, updates on the events and workshops, and then ways that you can participate in the campaign. And if you have questions or feedback along the way, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, and we'll stay on the line and answer any further questions. Thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Great. Well, Angela, yeah, if you want to ask your question, that'd be great.
Yeah, so how do we get equipped to be in a position to receive those non-cash assets? When we had a donor say, oh, I might have something, I went to the board and said, like, would we be open to that? Like, we have no policy on this. And they said, yeah. And that's as far as it went. And we have received non-cash gifts before properties, but, I don't want to recreate the wheel. So
Angela, you've got
toolkits
funds
or
with
something?
us. You're already positioned where the biggest trick would be making sure that we get it liquidated and to you in the appropriate time and amount. Because with the fund that you have right now, you could, like the public radio did, just say, hey, call this person, they want to give us real estate. We'll go through our real estate checklist. We'll talk to our realtors, our attorneys. We'll do all that.